Welcome to the Sunmall podcast, where we interview the stars of e-commerce. So today we have Anthony Franco of McSquares. So today he'll talk to us about McSquares, but also his interesting background and how he got into e-commerce. So the first question, Anthony, is I know you have like a background as a software engineer and leader. So how did you kind of make the transition from that to e-commerce?
Uh, well, I mean, e-commerce I think is still software, right? I mean,
Sure.
they're still very much related. Um, the connection really was so my last company, I I sold to a large holding company, and one of the requirements was that I didn't compete with them. So I almost had to pick a different industry to get into. And there was something where I wanted to develop my skill set beyond just writing code and developing actual real products. So that's really kind of the 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 inciting incident, if you will, for how I got into physical products, and then obviously you get into physical products, you got to figure out a way to sell it, and that's what got me into e-com.
That makes sense. Were there any kind of key lessons from writing software that transitioned to running your own brand?
One of the difficult pieces of the transition was, um, when you write a line of when you're writing code, when you're developing software, if you make a mistake, you can redeploy. And with physical products, if you make a mistake, it can be very, very costly. So I think what I what I what I didn't recognize from a difficult perspective was how difficult it would be to create something and launch it and not be able to iterate on it as you like you would a piece of software. So I know that's not real. I'm not really answering the question, but that's one of the things that I took away from me is like, wow, this is a lot harder than software.
I got you. Yeah, yeah. People complain about, oh, we want the compiler just to check mistakes, right? And it's like Python sucks because you catch the bugs in like runtime or whatever. But it's kind of crazy. Like with real products, you gotta have the supply chain stuff like that,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
it's
exactly right.
once totally makes sense. So maybe next you can talk to us about Mix Squares, the inspiration, the background there.
Yeah. So first of all, it's MC squares, kind of like
Oh,
Einstein's theory
sorry, my
of no, that's good. It's a common mistake, but it's kind of a hat tip to Einstein's theory of
makes a lot
relativity.
more sense. Makes a lot more sense.
Yeah. So in my last company, we did a lot of design thinking, and ultimately, when the real work was to get done, right, when the real brainstorming was to get done, it was done on a whiteboard and post-it notes, and and so when I left, I thought, hey, we can make this better. And so that's how MC Squares was born. We developed our initial product was called the collaboration tablet. We actually still have a version 3 we're manufacturing now. It sells mostly into schools and to businesses. And then when we brought manufacturing in house, I did a lot of exploration on new and interesting materials, and that's when we landed on the material that we use to make our reusable sticky notes. So kind of came full circle where we're making brainstorming tools, but also now we're in consumer space where we have life hacks for moms and project managers and just anybody that wants to organize their desk or their home or their office.
Makes sense. So kind of a little bit of a problem you had at your last business, brainstorming, and then kind of organically grew from there. So I think you said you initially started with the reusable, recyclable notepad, and then you guys expanded it into kind of adjacent product lines. So how did you guys think about sequencing here, when to add additional products?
Initially when we launched our first product, it was injection molded in China, and it was you had a 10,000 unit run that you had to do. It was very expensive, and um, eventually came to understand that um, that wasn't going to be a viable business model. So we brought manufacturing in house. When we brought manufacturing in house, we had a lot of spare machines. So I'm sitting in the factory. We have a lot of spare machine time that we were like, all right, what else can we do with this machine time? What other products can we make? So it was kind of a hammer looking for a nail to start. And so, we iterated on that product a little bit, and then we discovered some unique materials and decided we could make really great erasable calendars and to-do lists and sticky notes. So it's kind of we found materials. It's the wrong way to launch a product. Instead of finding a market need and then filling it, we found great materials and thought, hey, there's some use in the market for that. And that so we just continue to iterate. And because of the way we built the factory, we can launch short runs of products. So instead of now having 10,000 unit runs, we can launch a product with 25 units, test it in the market, see how it does, and if it does well, we expand it. If it doesn't, we close it, no big deal, and move on.
Makes sense. So you have that flexib. You had some excess capacity materials that allowed you to kind of brainstorm what else should we use with it, and then you also had flexibility in making kind of small batches, so it makes it easier to launch new products. What exactly you said how you guys set up the factory? So what was kind of unique or some kind of tips here for setting up the factory, the supply chain, to kind of have these small runs?
Yeah, so it's. I would still say we're experimenting. I don't know if it was the right decision or not yet because we do have quite a bit of overhead because building a factory is really expensive. So we made a bet that we would be able to get our cogs down and build a scalable factory. Still in the exploratory, is this going to work phase? So the tips on creating a factory. Yeah, I think the one thing that make sense for us is I ran the numbers and said the lease on the equipment is going to save us enough money on the product from instead of having somebody else make it, I can make it internally less expensive and pay for the lease of the equipment. So really run the numbers to make sure that it makes sense when you scale. Um, if you can do short runs with your current manufacturer, do that for as long as you can. Iterate for as long as you can without bringing manufacturing in house. Um, but yeah, and then the other thing is if you aren't conversant in manufacturing, you have to educate yourself on how things work. You can't just bring manufacturing in house and then let somebody else run the factory. You have to get really good at I went and took SolidWorks courses to know how to CAD model stuff. I just happen to be really good in Illustrator, which is what a lot of our products are run through in the factory. So you have to know the process and get really good at doing it yourself before you can scale it to other people.
Makes sense. So try to use your existing manufacturers until you kind of get that product market fit or found exactly what the consumers want. B, if you're gonna move it in house, make sure you know the numbers line up and the savings are worth it, and you're at the scale. And then C, you have to have some type of expertise if you're actually running your own factory.
Yeah, get good at you got to get good at it quick.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Um, Next question is that okay? So this is how you kind of built the product. How did you guys get the first 1,000 customers?
The first. So I would say in our first couple of years, when we launched our first product in 2016, we didn't have 1,000 customers for the first 2 years because our product line was more, um, they were $5,000 and $10,000 orders, so we had less customers but a broader, a higher ticket item that kept us in business. So we didn't really get our first 1,000 customers until we launched on Amazon with our reusable sticky notes, and that was a lot of trial and error. Just throwing products. Initially, we just threw products up to see if we could sell any. Didn't launch any ads, and we started selling, one or two a day, and we're like, wow, there's something here. So Then we started running PPC ads on Amazon, driving awareness, and I think in our first month on Amazon, we probably had a couple hundred orders. So within 6 months, we were at a thousand customers.
Makes sense. So quickly iterating, and then Amazon was kind of the unlock there. I guess before you mentioned you guys were selling orders like 5 to 10K. So were you selling those to like businesses or schools?
Mostly schools, yeah, mostly schools, and we did that with a couple of early relationships that we established with dealers here in Colorado that sold high end furniture to schools. We struck up a wholesale partnership with them, and used their sales team to do that.
Makes sense. So you had some sort of partnership who had the existing connections
Yeah,
to schools. So you were able to sell through that channel. And then Amazon, I guess, was more D2C, the consumer.
yeah, exactly right.
Makes sense. So I noticed, one thing was I think you guys were on Shark Tank. So any kind of, uh, you know, what was kind of the experience like, the actual experience, and then also post that, did you guys see any lift off? How did that help the business?
Yeah, so the experience is indescribable. It's once in a lifetime. Every entrepreneur, well, most entrepreneurs' dreams is to be on that show, even if it's not to take a deal. It's just because you could say you were on the show. We did get a deal. We actually closed the deal with Kevin O'Leary, which is very rare.
Yes, sir.
Um, the the I mean, of course, when we air, and we still are, like we air on repeats and stuff, we see a really good sales day. But it didn't double or triple our sales into perpetuity. We saw a lift, and then it carried on a little bit, and then we went back down to our normal growth rate. Um, so the bigger piece is that there's that trust in a brand that consumers have when you say you're on Shark Tank, you trust, and you have a shark on your cap table. It says something that somebody's done their due diligence on the company, and we're not going anywhere for a while. So it's kind of a marketing message that helps on our conversion rate more than it has increased our velocity dramatically.
I got you. So it's maybe you got that initial acquisition bump, uh, and then on these reruns or whatever, you guys get a little higher acquisition, but it's
Yeah,
more of a kind of social proof kind of thing for.
yeah, exactly right.
How did the shark Kevin O'Leary, did he end up helping you guys and actually running the business? Was there a lot of value add there?
Well, so running the business, no, he's not coming in here making stickies with us.
Right, right, right.
He, um, we'll reach out to him when we want to evangelize some news. The deal with Kevin is great because he has amazing social reach. And he mentions us on air every once in a while. My great brand's MC Squares, which is great. So it's more about that social proof and social reach that we leverage Kevin for. Than real He's great at operations. We just don't need that kind of help in the factory.
Makes sense. So he's got a big, kind of following. So using that occasionally as a channel there. So I think one thing you mentioned, the Shark Tank, helps with conversion. So I know that's on your site. I know, you guys have some nice animations on the site. So how do you guys think about website design, merchandising on the site?
So yeah, right. Right now we're treating our website. We're pouring all of our resources into Amazon currently. Amazon and other channels outside of our website. So we're looking at retail. We're looking at small store retail and big box retail, and growing those channels, or establishing relationships to get into those channels. We're not in any real retail stores yet. So we're focused mostly on Amazon. Our website is um, uh, we we have, I don't know, we have a good customer base that comes and they've heard about us on social media. So most of the stuff that we send to our website is through organic influencer marketing and public relations. Um, We don't send a lot of advertising traffic to our site right now. So it's just it's a when we look at our site, let me put it a different way. The SEO for our site is fairly weak, only because not a lot of people are looking for our category of products. We're new in the space, so our best reach right now is on Amazon, and then you know, then we'll start developing from our Amazon customers. Some of them will come over and become loyal customers on our .com. But again, most of our energy and efforts going being poured into Amazon.
Makes sense. Are there any kind of tips you have to do well on Amazon?
Um, yeah, there's. I mean, this is a whole. There's probably weeks and weeks and weeks of how to get good on Amazon, and it is so category specific. So I'm a part of a bunch of Amazon seller groups, and it's it's incredible from one category to the next what is needed in order to do well on Amazon. Um, Certainly, you have to calculate your margins and understand can you be profitable on Amazon? And it's not that easy to be profitable on Amazon. Second, you have to understand how much reach is there on Amazon for your products. So do customer search term research to figure out if you're going to be able to get enough traffic and velocity to your listings. And then you have to understand, how much do I need to put in Amazon warehouses? What are the fees that Amazon's going to charge? So Amazon sales is a little bit of the art on how to create your listings and get conversion rates up on Amazon, but also a lot of science in um, you know PPC advertising and commissions rates and fulfilled by Prime. All of those things weigh into whether or not you can be profitable. So I would recommend taking an Amazon course or two. They're not that expensive. You can take an Amazon course for $500 just to get in, just to understand the platform, and then go back to experiment. Start small, learn, start a little bit, then grow a little bit from there.
Makes sense. It's really category specific. You really got to think through, what are all the costs on Amazon, see if it works in your business, and then, merchandise specifically for Amazon. Make sure you understand it. Maybe take a course. Are there any kind of specific?
I'll add a little bit to that and say, the I know there are still some folks that are making money on Amazon selling somebody else's product. And I think that's a very diminishing game on Amazon. Um, so establishing a brand, getting on the brand registry, establishing a brand and a vision for who you are, and messaging that through your Amazon store and your product pages um, is kind of critical. It's table stakes to get into Amazon now.
Makes sense. So maybe in the early internet, drop shipping, stuff like that on Amazon, there was an opening there. But now it's really kind of, you
It'd
have
be
to have
really
your
because everybody's doing it, and
own.
there's I mean, how many people have you seen on just on LinkedIn saying make thousands of dollars on Amazon, passive income? It's not that way anymore. You can't do it. They're charlatans now. Yeah,
Yeah, you see those Twitter threads and all
yeah.
that. Exactly. Are there any kind of, you mentioned a couple courses are pretty cheap. Are there any like you specifically know about or you found?
Um, I'm sorry, not off the top of my head. I don't. It was like 4 years ago when I took mine, and yeah,
Yeah, probably there's some new ones and stuff like that.
yeah, and it changes constantly. So yeah, the one
Um,
I took would not be relevant anymore.
Makes sense. And so I noticed one thing. I'm not sure if you guys do this on Amazon, but how do you guys think about bundling the products together and the like the sizing of yeah, units?
Yeah, so we actually Amazon has this thing called virtual bundles that allow us to take our products and make a bundle and sell the bundle on Amazon, which is actually a really nice feature. And that was just recently launched. We do bundle products as well, so we'll take our top five and create a SKU out of it to sell on Amazon. It's one of the nice things about we have 80 SKUs, and a lot of them are designed to work together. So we have an obvious um, bundling strategy just by looking at our product line. Um, so yeah, but it certainly helps with average order value, increasing your average order value when you bundle things, and lowering your customer acquisition cost as a percentage because your ticket value is higher.
That makes
Um, but it's a strategy that doesn't work for everybody. It just happens to work for us really well.
Makes sense. So you guys have these natural adjacencies. Amazon kind of natively makes this pretty easy recently.
Yep.
So you get higher. Obviously, you want your AOV to be as high as possible, because you're going to pay the advertising or acquisition costs there. Do you guys run Amazon ads?
Yeah, quite a
Um,
bit.
um, are there are there any kind of tips on that? Yeah,
Um, Tips on running Amazon ads. So if you're comfortable running Facebook ads and comfortable running Google ads, you will be totally uncomfortable running an Amazon. It's a completely different beast. You're really looking for its bottom of the funnel advertising. So intent, there's a lot more consumer intent on the advertising, which means there's a lot more competition for probably your target keywords. So the I would say the best practices with Amazon, spending Amazon advertising is I would say do three things. One, run an auto campaign to understand to have Amazon help you figure out what keywords are working, and then harvest those keywords into a manual campaign in order to and exact target the keywords that are working in the manual campaign, and then you can play with the bids for those keywords, and then negate those keywords in the auto campaign. So you're not competing. Your auto campaign, your keyword campaigning are competing with one another. The other thing I would say is the traditional sponsored product campaigns on Amazon work. They're about 70% of our sales, or 70% of our ad sales are driven from those. But we've seen really good success with video ads in the sponsored display section of Amazon. So um, a not overproduced but still professional video does really well for us on Amazon.
makes sense. So channels like video ads, and then the tactics you gave. But I think one really key point I think you mentioned is it's like Amazon is not as much discovery as of Instagram. It's already high intent. So really structuring that when you kind of think of the content and the ads you create there. Um,
It's really easy to blow money on Amazon advertising and not make anything. So start slow, go small, and learn and grow from there.
Makes sense. And I think that piggybacks into what you said before is you really have to understand the cost structure of Amazon to make sure you make money there. Um, One other channel you mentioned was influencer marketing. How did you guys find these influencers? Any tips for working with them?
Yeah. So our my CMO Amanda, it's her bread and butter. So she worked for Pop Sockets on their influencer PR marketing. She's exceptional at it. Influencer PR, you have to treat it like a sales process. So you have it's a numbers game. It's reaching out to a lot of influencers, a lot of journalists, um, doing a great job at storytelling on why our products are relevant, um, and then getting them products so they can test it, play with it on camera. So, but it's more than a full time job to attract and retain and engage influencers. It needs to be treated as its own special, unique thing.
Makes sense. It's kind of like managing a sales process, like you mentioned, and you
Yeah.
have to kind of contact them, keep a CRM, make sure they're engaged, follow up. Totally makes sense. So you mentioned retail, influencer marketing, Amazon ads. Are there any other kind of big channels that have been helpful for you?
well, hopefully retail. We're not in big retail yet. Um, I think Walmart's something to keep an eye on. We're not seeing a lot of sales on Walmart yet, but um, they're they're becoming a player, and I could see in the next couple of years they're going to be 15-20% of our revenue
Makes sense. And is this Walmart in store or online?
online. Online,
Online.
Walmart.com. Yeah,
Okay.
they're developing a marketplace just like Amazon has. It's been around for a while. When they bought Jet.com, they kind of folded that into Walmart.com. It's still not as mature as the Amazon platform. Um, and Amazon's platform is still has a lot of maturity. Like there's a lot of stuff that they're going to need to do to get it to be a truly mature platform. But Walmart's still behind it.
Makes sense. Yeah, they're kind of moving from physical to the online world,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
they'll be a little bit behind. Are there any overall trends you're kind of excited about in e-commerce or looking forward to?
Um, yeah, I think there's a couple of things that are interesting. So Shopify has is we'll see if they're successful or not, but they're trying to become a marketplace with their Shopify sellers with their shop app, and we're starting to see some sales from it. So I think the more players in the market, the better. Um, but these marketplaces have to find a way to make it not difficult to to list your products on their platform. It's hard enough to list your products on Amazon, and then to figure out a whole new process to list your products on other platforms that are emerging. Like Wayfair is almost a joke on how difficult it is to get on their platform. Target.com is very difficult in in relative terms compared to what the revenue is. So it doesn't make sense to list because the revenue, the traffic, the velocity isn't there like it is on Amazon. So I'm excited to see somebody like Shopify where they're aggregating stores with the data they already have, and then creating a marketplace out of that. That seems pretty cool. And the more more platforms can do that with existing data, the more excited I get.
Makes sense. So when you mentioned it's really hard to get on Wayfair, is that more like, hey, getting approved, or is it, keep syncing the catalog and the description? So is it more of
Yeah,
a
it. You know, every one of these marketplaces has their own um, data structure that you have to conform to, which you know, probably should not have pointed out, singled out Wayfair. They're no harder than anybody else. It's just it's hard to tell why there's the why bother piece of it. Like, what am I going to see? You know, two sales out of this a month? If so, why am I doing? Why am I spending all this time getting on their platform when it doesn't make any sense? So, um, yeah, it's just you have to know your channel. You have to do the research, figure out how much work it's going to be take to put in, and then is it worth my time to do that?
makes sense. You don't like you got to focus on your biggest channels, and if the smaller channels, there's a lot of work there, then it
There's a lot of work, but channel diversity is important. I mean, Amazon could delist you for a variety of reasons, a lot of which aren't even your fault. So having having alternative channels is important, um, but a lot of them are just not worth it yet.
makes sense. I guess the shop one is shop app is it's kind of natively integrated with Shopify, so there's literally it should be the
Yeah,
easiest integration. I think they had a big thing with Mr. Beast recently, so I think they're like in the last week, so I think they're getting a lot of traffic there. And then one thing you mentioned is you're in some of these Amazon groups. Interact with other brands. Are there kind of some key things that you see, like mistakes early stage brands make, and maybe some smart things like the most promising brands do?
yeah. So yeah, I don't know how much in the weeds I want to get on this, but um, Amazon. So one of the mistakes that we made, and actually has hurt us, was you manage your catalog on Amazon using Excel spreadsheets. That's people. When I tell people I manage my Amazon business with Excel, they think I'm an idiot. They're like, "Why are you doing that?" It's because Amazon requires it. You have to upload flat files into Amazon, and it's really easy for your data to not match what Amazon thinks you should be, and that mismatch can actually get you to be cause you to be shadow banned. So making sure when you're listing products on Amazon that all the data, like spending the extra time and understanding the data structure that Amazon needs, and making sure that all the, the nodes, which think of those as Excel cells, are all properly filled out and correct to what Amazon is expecting. That has caused a lot of sellers a lot of pain. Um, I would say avoid violating terms of service. So don't do any black hat things. That'll get you banned off Amazon. I've seen a lot of brands do that and just get completely shut down. It used to be where Amazon turned a blind eye. They don't anymore. Like, don't manipulate reviews. You'll get banned, and it's not worth it. It's actually against the law to manipulate reviews. So no, I would again going back to know the Amazon and what they want from you, know the terms of service, and then what really good brands do is it's great photography, great storytelling on their listing page, and having a really good brand story.
Makes sense. Really having a high quality listing. Maybe in the early days, you could get away with kind of this review, using one review on another product. But now you got to be careful. I think there was like some actual court case where the government came after some much more established brand, but just sued them after kind of using reviews on one product um, for the other one. So really make sure you kind of follow the rules there.
Yep.
And then just final kind of wrap up questions here. What's kind of the big focus for you in the next 6 months?
Next, it's there's always Amazon, so we're always trying to grow and improve um, uh, our Amazon listings and Amazon sales. But for us right now, it's um, it's getting retail presence, retail footprint. Uh, we're 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 redesigning some of our packaging. We actually make our own packaging right here in the factory, so it's redesigning some of the packaging so it has more shelf appeal. And then working with smaller retailers, so we can get some velocity data that we can then bring to bigger retailers. So it's growing Amazon and then channel diversity. Those are the two things that we're working on.
Makes sense. These alternative channels like retail, and then making sure you're doing well on your primary channel,
Yeah.
Amazon. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Sun Mall Podcast. Please make sure to subscribe.